Hello, everybody. Roger Durling here with the Santa Barbara International Film Festival, and I'm deeply honored to have writer, director Eugene Ashe and composer Fabrice Lecomte with us today, and their amazing film, Sylvie's Love. I just want to quickly read a quote from RogerEbert.com. Nick Allen says, Thompson and Asamuga do strong work in filling the emotional core in Sylvie's Love, a film that's best taken as a welcome corrective with a kind of grandiose emotional scenes that will always make for movie magic. Welcome, gents, and I'm going to start right with Eugene and that notion of the welcome corrective. When I first saw the film, I was struck with the fact that the 50s and the 60s feel in traditional Hollywood film quality of your film, and that we're seeing African American characters, but uh, there's no adversity. I mean, no racial adversity. It's you're focusing on the love, and can you address that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea from the beginning was always to make a film set during that time that didn't focus on our adversity or our struggle, which we generally see in films from that time, because most films with Black leads that take place in 1962 are going to be dealing with the civil rights movement. They're going to be dealing with Martin Luther King. And those films certainly needed to be made, but we also felt that by never showing the other things that were going on or framing it through our humanity, that it was sort of a way of erasing the fact that we existed in everyday life and that we are resilient people and still fall in love and have babies. And one thing that I often say is that, even Martin Luther King and Malcolm X still found time to get married and have children. So
And your approach that what I love about this film is that it doesn't it surrenders cynicism um, to the love. Can you talk about that?
yeah, I mean, you have to lean into it. It's made to be, it's not really a send up of the movies of those times, but even the plot mechanics of it are done in such a way that, it's not really based in 100% in reality. There's certain melodramatic elements to it. We try to do it in a nuanced way and not have it just be a soap opera, but it's important for it to also address the style of the time, because the idea was to try to make it look like a movie that was actually made from in that time and feel like a movie that was actually made in that time. I mean, the modernity comes from the fact that it's Black characters playing those roles. It was a very meta idea to cast Tessa as Sylvie, because she has such agency and she's such an activist in real life. So to have her in this role is really, it was that you're in the time that we live in now, but at the same time, I wanted you to feel this immersive and experience, and yes, surrender cynicism and give up cynicism and just allow it to wash over you and understand the movie that I'm trying to make. It's not an action movie. It's not a romantic comedy. It's supposed to feel like this great classic Hollywood movie, but starring Black folks instead of, Doris Day.
Yeah, but there's still, I mean, I want to borrow the word that you use, modernity. There is, I was taken aback by, in a good way, in one moment towards the end of the movie where, she tells him, I can take care of things.
Right.
And then he brings up, what kind of a man would that make me? I
Yeah.
mean, that is definitely resonant to today.
Yeah, without a doubt. And that's really her arc and what we were why it's set between 1957 and 1963. Betty Friedan's book, The Feminine Mystique, came out in 1962 and really kind of energized the women's movement. And we don't really see that in films, even from that time, that often. But I wanted to investigate this idea of how we got from there to here, and how we got from these old status quo ideas of the wife just being a homemaker to going out in the workforce. And, you know, my mother worked, and I saw that kind of arc in my own family life. So I just wanted to investigate that. I thought it was an interesting concept for Tessa's character, of course. In Namdi's, we're investigating the change from one style of music to another one and the fallout that happens from that. So,
which is nice segue to include Fabrice. Fabrice, you actually had a monumental task, because not only do you have to create this gorgeous, lush score to the film, but the bebop, they're all original songs, correct?
Yes, they are. They are, and that was the first thing that we worked on. And Eugene had everything planned perfectly. And the first thing he wanted to, in order to make the movie as realistic as possible, for the period, he wanted to have jazz tunes written in that style specifically from the point of view of the pianist, which is also a very interesting thing. And he wanted to have the tunes recorded the way they used to do at the time. So at the time you had the group rehearsing a couple of times the tunes. Once it was ready, they would go into the studio, and in just 2 takes, they would have the final product. And It didn't matter if there were some dirty notes, they were part of the moment, the impetus. And we had a stellar group performing, and that's exactly what they did. That's why they sound so fresh. And Eugene wanted to work it in a way that, like if we were actually preparing an album of the period, and that's therefore there were a series of weird titles, and that's because there was an inner joke with Eugene and I. The name of the pianist and band leader is Brewster, Dickie Brewster. Dickie Brewster. So since it's coming from him, and he always wanted to be upfront, the name are B dot hyphen loved or B bop or B blue. That's the B obviously is Brewster, and he's everywhere. And Eugene and I love joking on it. And Eugene decided to introduce in the script the title of the album, and he called it B-Sides, which is hysterical. And he has Eva Longoria talking about it at the famous party for New Year's Eve. So that was a lot of fun. We recorded that before, and then later on, when they decided they picked Beloved as the main theme, then we rethought everything, and I worked on the orchestration. And Eugene wanted massive strings, and he wanted all the music to be very melodic and easy to remember, which to me is fantastic, because nowadays movie directors don't want melodies anymore. They just want a lot of percussions. And we got rid of most of the major percussions here, obviously, because you already had it in the jazz music and in the needle drum. So everything was researched for a sound that was the missing link between all the different other types of music, but that would still mirror the feelings of the movie. So in the beginning, you have light percussions and light instrumentation, high-pitched, and then towards the end, when it becomes more of a drama, you get into the darker sounds of the orchestra and the cellos and the strings, and and you try to sort of do a liaison between those needle drops and everything else, and bring out the emotional side of it.
Yeah, and I love the last beat of the movie by the car, where the orchestration just builds up. It reminded me of Michel Legrand and did I say the right words?
Oh, you did.
You said it perfectly. That's one of the requests of Eugene.
Well,
and I appreciate your saying that, and I that's a great compliment. Thank you.
Well, it's a gorgeous score, and that song Beloved. Why did you? And I'll go back to Eugene. Don't feel left out, Eugene. Why did you decide to record it in French through the closing credits?
Well, actually, that was the choice of Eugene, to have it in French. You should ask him that.
Okay, Eugene, why did you choose to record it in French?
Well, there's this French concept, retrouvaille, that we kind of, it's not really a concept, it's a word that really talks about the joy of reuniting and getting back together, or seeing someone after a long time, is the kind of rough explanation of it. And we had a song called Retrouvaille that was one of the soundtracks that Fabrice and I he created, and it was something that was guiding me through the process. And the idea of France and Robert, and France being this other character in the movie, it's a place that he goes to with the band, and there are all of these kind of interesting French undertones. Now, I'm a very big fan of Cécile McLaurin-Salvant, who is, she just won the MacArthur Genius Award, and she was Best Jazz Vocalist 2018, 2019, and then still nominated, I think. She is Haitian, and French is actually her first language. And so I just wanted her she wrote lyrics over Fabrice's wonderful music, and I really wanted her to just do what was natural to her. And she did it in French, and it was what we talked about. She asked if I would mind, and I said I would prefer it. So that was really kind of great. And she just knocked it out the park. They're beautiful lyrics, and it just takes you someplace else. It lets you see that there's an international feeling to it. It kind of throws to the possibility of a sequel. We may talk about what happens when Robert was in Paris for those 5 years. So it does a lot.
That's great.
Hopefully it's just beautiful.
I have to ask you about, one of my favorite scenes is the basement stairs sequence where they're sharing a cigarette, and your choice of not scoring that sequence. We pay attention to church bells outside. We hear train sounds, and can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, that was we had just seen her do See You Later, Alligator. And they're talking about music, and they're talking about it in a different type of way. He's realizing that for the first time, there's someone who understands music. And it was very important for us to just kind of really focus on the chemistry between them without the support necessarily of enhancing the mood. We just felt after shooting it that it just didn't really need a lot, to bring it out. And it was working that way. So that's really what that decision was based on. Fabrice is he can make something like just, he can turn a scene that's not working and flat into something that's brilliant with his music. So fortunately, I didn't need a lot of help on that one. Tessa and Nnamdi really, you get their chemistry.
Mm-hmm. And Fabrice, I was noticing that your score seamlessly works with when a song by Nancy Wilson plays in. Were you playing off the other sort of classic songs that were being played out throughout the movie?
I wasn't trying to play off of them. I was trying to stick to, since all of the music is a variation or a reharmonization of Be Loved, I was trying to use that as a main thing, but with an arrangement that would be typical, an orchestration that would be typical of that period. So it may sound like a segue, and that actually, if it did, that's wonderful. But I didn't take that. I didn't take any melodic ideas from that, and I was just trying to work on making it all as a whole, as including it, so that it would be more of a something that would work as a whole, and
Mm-hmm.
and try to add, if there was ever any need, some extra emotions that were not evoked by the other song.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
yeah, go ahead.
a lot of those, the Nancy Wilson stuff, will have these sort of orchestrations that are, Fabrice is doing something that was very kind of period specific. We didn't want the underscore to sound anachronistic for the movie. So he did a really great job of bridging, we've got all these different needle drops. We've got jazz, we've got kind of pop stuff. And Fabrice
Lucy
did
Walper.
That's right. He did the Lucy Walper cooking show theme song.
Oh, I didn't.
I mean, it just sounds like something from that time. It's crazy.
Speaking of that time, tell me about your love for movies like Marjorie Morningstar and Pillow Talk and all this.
I mean, I love that stuff. That Touch of Mink is a very big one for me. Come Blow Your Horn with Frank Sinatra. I love the women's pictures from that era, but I also just love, I love the Pink Panther with that great scene by Fran Jeffries. Meglio Stasera, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just love the glamour of that era and that time, and wanted to recreate it with Black people. I thought it was really kind of, in looking at old family photos and looking at from my family photo albums and then looking at actual albums from that time. I mean, the Black people on album covers and in my family photo albums look just like the people in those movies. So I was like, that's interesting because I've never really seen them. Remember when we're showing a depiction of the civil rights movement, you're not going to have them wearing like these fabulous clothes because they're supposed to be downtrodden and, the police are hosing them down and dogs are attacking them. So you're not going to have them in a Chanel gown. So that's the thing. It was nice to be able to kind of show them that way. And yeah, I love the glamour. Breakfast at Tiffany's. I mean, come on, who doesn't love that? And yeah.
No, and why did you lean, in a good way, why did you lean on the Hollywood backlot where I mean, you shot obviously in a movie studio, in a backlot, as opposed to recreating outside?
Yeah, I mean, the original impulse was to recreate it. We were going to shoot in May in New York City and upstate New York. And then Tessa wasn't available. She was only available in February. And as you know, by the snowstorm that's going on in New York right now, the winters are very unpredictable. So we couldn't shoot certainly upstate in February for summer. So I got the idea to shoot. Actually, I kind of pushed that idea. It was like, look, we have her in February. She has to be Sylvie in the movie. And why don't we shoot it in LA? And I had to really kind of convince the producers a little bit, just because I had to show them other examples of movies that were shot there, like Sparkle from 1976, which was a 1976 period piece set during 1950s in the late 50s into the 60s. So I showed them and I said, this was the Warner Brothers lot. All of these buildings are still here. I think we can do it. And then they believed me. We went and did a couple of little scouts and I took a bunch of pictures. And so that was that. And then once I got, originally I thought maybe something that the film would be more like something like Carol or A Single Man, a little bit more of an indie, intimate portrayal. And then when I got on the backlots, I was like, this needs to be a big Hollywood classic. It's just when you get there, you want to rise to the occasion of the other films that have been shot there. You can feel it. I mean, I was walking around on the Paramount lot at like 4 a.m. by myself. And I was just like, I knew it. I knew the movie. I knew the entire look, what it needed to be. And Declan and I talked about it. He's our cinematographer.
Declan Quinn, yeah.
And we really talked about if we were going to be able to, get sort of a Technicolor look. And we brought in Maine Burke, our production designer, and of course, the great Phoenix Mello, our costume designer. And it was just kind of like all of those things that work in conjunction with each other. And then Fabrice's beautiful score to make you feel like you're capturing that era. So the real shift was just sort of leaning into making this Hollywood classic. You know, it was always going to be set during that time. Fabrice was always going to do the music. All the same people would have probably worked on it, but it was just a shift in leaning into those Hollywood backlots. It's something that they do to you. It's really kind of magical.
No, it
And
is. I mean, I think of the scene. Yeah, I think of the scene when they're dancing in the street,
right? Yeah.
and you understand that it's movie magic. It adds a
Yeah.
special sheen to it that, yeah.
You know, what's crazy. That was this is interesting. So you know, you have a wet down of the street when you shoot a scene like that. You have you have a wet down, and it rained right before the scene,
Oh,
and we actually had to dry all the cars. So, you know, the planet was our wet down. It was a naturally wet down street from it had just rained, and we had to quickly wipe down all the cars. It was just really, it was interesting because usually you have a big truck that sprays the water on and you do your wet down. And others, you know, whenever you should see a scene where the street is shot at night, they always wet it down because it has a nice reflectivity and balance of light.
it's very beautiful,
Yeah.
very beautiful scene. Fabrice, did Namdi play his own saxophone?
Yes, actually, Namdi, Eugene wanted to make it look like Namdi was really playing everything, because as we had discussed with Eugene, it's a lot of times you see movies, jazz movies, and it doesn't look like, you know, the main actor knows anything, the difference between a saxophone and a shoe. So, you know, Eugene is very meticulous, and he wanted to make sure that everything looked perfect. So Namdi actually studied the saxophone for more than 1 year, very diligently, practicing every day for hours. And he actually, that scene where he's serenading Sylvie, he is the one playing the saxophone outside the window. And I didn't know it was him. Actually, I thought that it was Mark Turner. And he sounds really, really good. And you can see when they actually tape the music in Blue Morocco, he's probably, I wasn't there, but I'm sure that apart from moving the correct way, I'm sure he was also playing underneath. He had learned the parts.
Yeah, I mean, he's playing when we were doing it live, of course. The important thing to me was that he had the fingering down. So, I mean, it's essentially trying to do the fingering on a Mark Turner solo is like, you know, playing Jimi Hendrix guitar, you know. So it's a really complicated and fast piece on some of the stuff like bebop. And he really got it down because what I told all of the guys, because they all had to kind of play along, and Reggae does a great job on drums too. And then the bassist is, you know, he's played with Beyonce and Courtney Houser, he's played with everybody. So he's a real bassist. But the other guys, I wanted to be able to put the camera where I wanted to. I didn't want to have to do these like silly pan down to the hand shots and, you know, it's different hands, you know. I just didn't want to do it like that. I wanted to be able to shoot it how I wanted to shoot. And so these long shots, you can't hide it. You know, you can see what he's doing, and anyone who plays would just be like, oh, he's not playing. Like, guys are really, really, you know, jazz heads are really into the music and into the fact that these guys took the care to try to be respectful of the music and what it means to be a musician.
The great success of the movie is the fact that Tessa and Namdi work so well together. You know, talk, if you can, Eugene, about casting the two of them and understanding that they were so right for the roles together.
Yeah, I mean, it's chemistry is something that you either have or you don't have. And the great Hollywood movies that we love, when you think of Ryan O'Neal and Ally McGraw, or you think of Barbra Streisand and Robert Redford, or Billy D. Williams and Diana Ross, you know, or Sidney Poitier and Diane Carroll, when you think of these great the great chemistry and the love stories that we love and that go back forever, Bogart and Bacall. But it's something that you can't quite put your finger on. So, you know, Namdi was already attached as a producer. I'd seen Tessa. She has a really kind of like a funny side. She's a little bit of a prankster, and she can kind of coax things out of Namdi that, you know, she can get him to react to certain things in a certain way. And I really liked that dynamic when we were in the rehearsal process. So I just kind of wanted to amp that up. Namdi has an incredible amount of vulnerability that I really wanted to get across. And she's very nurturing of that side of him. And so the way in planning the shoot, we start with, you know, like the shot outside where they run into each other after 5 years was one of the first shots that we did. And that was by design. We really wanted the chemistry to evolve organically. So I scheduled a lot of the shots where they were just getting to know each other or where they haven't seen each other in 5 years. So those were all the shots in the beginning, you know, and then as it progressed into the shoot, we got into the scenes where they know each other and there's a little more chemistry. So it was able to develop quite naturally and organically over the course of the shoot as well.
Mm-hmm. Was it always in the script that the opening scene, which is it's a showstopper, the scene of them outside the Nancy Wilson concert, that was it? We were always going to start 5 years and then come back, do the flashback?
Yeah, that's how it started. The only thing that's missing from the original script, as Fabrice will tell you, is that it was raining. And, you know, rain costs money. And this is still an independent feature. So I sacrificed the rain. But other than that, it's pretty much exactly how it's been in the script for the life of the script, this opening of them running into each other like that, and then the flashback.
And
you know,
yeah,
Roger,
go ahead, Fabrice. Yeah.
you know, sorry if I'm interrupting here.
No, please.
I have to jump in and say that I've never read a script as beautiful as the one that Eugene sent me. And I saw all of the drafts, and every time it was better and better and better. And he had everything planned out perfectly. He had the perfect idea of what he wanted, down to all of the needle drops, to all of the shots and everything. And it was written in such a moving way that, I mean, you respond immediately to the script. And, you know, and personally, I liked the fact also that everything was so elegantly done with such a delicate touch. And there was no, you know, macho attitudes in the main character. You know, that I thought that everything was so delicate and it was so emotional just by eliminating all the bad things. So, you know, I saw it as a beautiful dream. Nobody's talking about the drug problems that the jazz players had at the time. No, you know, this is great. It's not touching on all the bad things. This is a beautiful escapist movie, and that's what we need, just about love, pure, beautiful love, you know, and from that first script, which I thought was a masterpiece, everything started from that. And of course his direction, you know, is great, and his attention to all the details, he's an amazing man.
Yeah, it is terrific, and so many quotable lines in the film. It's just it is a beautiful work, Eugene. You should be very proud.
Thanks. But you know, Roger, it wasn't really an effort to sanitize the period either. It was just about, you know, because other things happen. I just really wanted to focus on the things that were happening to them being interpersonal. You know, and we've seen the trope of the heroin addict or alcoholic jazz guy. We've just seen it over and over again. It's been done to death. I just thought it was a little tired and played. And not everybody was, you know, Eric Dolphy wasn't a heroin addict. He died from, you know, I think he had diabetes. You know, there was plenty of people who didn't do drugs. Not everyone did them. So it was more about, you know, dynamic between him and Dickie Brewster, and the dynamic between him and the world changing. You know?
Yeah, I do have to ask you about you briefly mentioned your costume designer. The costumes are showstoppers.
Okay.
Yeah, can you talk about, especially her dresses in some moments are, yeah, it's pretty spectacular stuff.
Yeah, we got several dresses from Chanel. We wound up using 3, and they were from their archive. I believe it was the Karl Lagerfeld era of Chanel, that those dresses are from. But the blue one in the beginning, even in the script, I describe it as a Tiffany box blue dress, because I wanted to kind of rewrite in some ways the joy that you get from watching Breakfast at Tiffany's and Audrey Hepburn walking up.
And she even has the hairdo as well.
Yeah. So we wanted to just kind of, Audrey Hepburn has this black Givenchy dress on. So it's like, what does a black woman have on? Another thing that we do in the beginning in that opening too, is it looks like the way I wanted to shoot it was there's all of these white folks in the front. And then as the camera moves in, they sort of part ways and go into the movie, and you realize that Sylvie is the subject, that this black woman is the subject of it. And I think that that's a powerful moment. And her in that blue dress just had to be perfect. And so Chanel was really so gracious to loan us those dresses. Is that one, the one in the New Year's party with beautiful
with the
white cowl?
White, yeah.
And then there's a navy blue one that she wears in the Chinese restaurant scene. That's also pretty fantastic. Those are the 3 from Chanel. But Phoenix Mello also did a really terrific job of fitting. She comes from working on Mad Men and working on Black Panther doing fittings. So she's really good with fit. And that's the most important thing from that time, because even when men bought off the rack suits, they had them tailored before they wore them. So that was really, often I'll see a period piece and it's like, the fit isn't really good on that suit. This guy, the sleeves are too long, a bunch of stuff. If you look at the sleeves are beautiful. She had all like functioning buttonholes, and just the 2 buttons that they used to do, that if you look at the Frank Sinatra movies, and a lot of details like that, she just had it down, which is really fantastic. I was great. Like, yeah, so she was just, her attention to detail and her experience working on Mad Men, and then in working at what she worked at Western Costume, which is like, that's the big place where you get all of the period clothes. So she had worked there in the past and really was familiar with their inventory.
And why is she in curlers in the scene when he comes back and finds out about Michelle being his daughter? I love it. I love it. I love the fact that she's in curlers, but I wanted to hear from you why she's in curlers.
Because it's really like the antithesis of this like kind of prim and proper girl that he met. It really kind of, she's changed. They both changed, and I think that women from that time would not be caught dead in curls. So it was perfect that she's there. She looks stunning with those curlers in her hair and the thing. Yeah. Well, I think
that's actually, I remember my mom wearing curlers, and she would never be caught dead in any moment and that's actually what made me think about it. But it makes sense. It's beautiful. It makes her vulnerable, and it's a very vulnerable scene. And then last but not least, you close the film with dedicating it to Diane, Nancy, and Doris Day. Would you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, those 3 women, Diane Carroll, Nancy Wilson, and Doris Day, no 3 women on this planet more than those 3 were an influence on this film. And the movie is really suffused with, so many references and their energy. And we lost all 3 of them in 2019. which was the year I shot and finished the movie. And so I just thought it was very fitting to dedicate the film to them. I wanted all three. I was ready. I had all of their contact information. I was ready to invite them to screenings and everything, you know, and then they all left me. It was almost as though I had their blessing and they were able to move on. They had served their purpose for the film or something. I don't know, but it was, I found it really, really odd that they all left the planet at the same time.
Yeah. And also Johnny Mandel, who wrote The Shadow of Your Smile.
That's right.
Died this year. Yeah, which is I love that song. There's so many terrific songs that you use as a soundtrack. It's terrific.
They're very nostalgic, right? I mean, that's what we were really trying to evoke, this sense of nostalgia for that period, the sense that you get when you look at, you know, your parents in photo albums from that time. There's just, you know, you want to be there. I mean, we were all like, you know, we were all little guys, you know, if we were around then. I wasn't quite around yet, but, you know, it was, I came in the world a little after the time of this movie, but my brother was born in 1959. So I saw all of these pictures growing up and I was just so jealous. It looks like such a great time.
Well, I was born in '63 and I was telling my husband last night that my dad would listen to Nancy Wilson records and have a martini. So it definitely brought me back to that. And speaking of that, I look forward to sharing a martini with the two of you guys at some point in person.
Love to.
Matter of fact, I'll have one with you, for I have quite a day too.
Well, gents, thank you so much and congratulations. The movie opens, it's available on Amazon on December 23rd. It makes for a perfect holiday movie. It's romantic and there's a New Year's Eve sequence. So it makes perfect for a holiday.
Performance from Eva Longoria, that's right.
There you go, yeah. Anyway, thank you so much, guys. Congratulations.
Thank you, Roger. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Thank you.
Felicidades.
Yes. Feliz Navidad.